Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to call the meeting to order.
Welcome to Stratus Network's Anytime Conferencing. Please enter your
He's getting
access
Steve
code
Ricker on the line.
followed
Okay.
by the pound sign. Please stand by.
I said Steve, but I don't know who that'd be. It's Steve Bricker, I guess. Yeah, Steve's out of town.
Chairperson, press the star key now. Please enter your chairperson pass.
Steve Ricker's out of town.
Conference, press 1. To start your conference now, press star. Please state your name after the tone, then press pound. Your conference will now begin. You can record your call by pressing star 2 at any time to start or end a recording. For a menu of conference commands, press star at any time. You will now be placed into conference.
Okay.
Join.
All right, we're good.
Okay. Thank you. Please stand for a moment of silence, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, before we start, could I have an approval to have Mr. Ricker
Oh, I'm sorry.
online? Paul and Rob. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, Steve, you're on.
Roll call, please. Okay, let's see what I can do here. Can't shrink it. Let's see if Mike can shrink it for me. I don't know how to shrink it. Thank you.
I'm just playing, sorry. This car wants to go to the right.
17 present.
Thank you. Okay, the first thing, I should have mentioned our moment of silence was for the respect for the veterans. Today being Veterans Day, so thanks to all the people in the audience that are veterans and or related to a veteran. Okay, first we have a proclamation, Rachel, and it is for proclamation.
I'm sorry, well, approval of the minutes would be first. And
Yeah, you're right. Thank you. I appreciate
Oh,
you,
it's
Sheriff,
okay.
Rachel, for keeping me straight.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Just need a motion in a second.
Okay. Could we have a motion to approve the minutes? Jennifer? Matt? You second? Yeah, thank you. Okay, all those in favor? Please vote.
Mr. Ricker?
Aye.
17 ayes.
Okay, go ahead now. Now we can do the proclamation.
Okay.
Rachel, thank you.
A proclamation recognizing November 27th, 2021 as Small Business Saturday.
Gretchen? I think Gretchen's. Oh, JD, good. Come on up, JD. Thank you. Appreciate it, appreciate it. Mhm.
So whereas Peoria County celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community, and whereas according to the United States Small Business Administration, there are 30.7 million small businesses in the United States, representing 99.7% of all firms with paid employees, and are responsible for 65.1% of net new jobs created from 2000 to 2019. And whereas the vast majority of consumers who shopped on Small Business Saturday agree that shopping at small, independently owned businesses supports their commitment to making purchases that have a positive social, economic, and environmental impact. And whereas Small Business Saturday and our local Shop Small effort, Shop Local 365, encourages residents to shop or eat at small, independently owned businesses all year long, not just during the holiday season. And whereas Shop Local 365 is comprised of Peoria County, Discover Peoria, the Greater Peoria Economic Development Council, City of Peoria, Peoria Area Chamber of Commerce, and regional chambers of commerce in our 5-county region, working together to promote shopping locally at small businesses. And whereas Peoria County supports our local businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our neighborhoods. And whereas advocacy groups, as well as public and private organizations across the county, have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. Now, therefore, I, Andrew A. Rand, Chairman of the Peoria County Board, do hereby proclaim Saturday, November 27th, 2021, as Small Business Saturday, dated this 11th day of November, AD 2021, signed Andrew A. Rand, Peoria County Board Chairman, and Rachel Parker, Peoria County Clerk.
Thank you. Thank you all, and thank you for your service here for Peoria County and our region. I would respect to our veterans here on this Veterans Day. Thank you for those in the room or those watching that have served our country. On behalf of our board of directors at Discover Peoria, including Julie Enzenberger, one of our board members here, and all of the organizations listed here in this proclamation, Alicia Calderon, who helps our community engagement, really I want to say thank you, and honored and privileged to be part of this proclamation to really promote the small businesses within our own backyards. And as Discover Peoria and our Visitors Bureau is here to represent our residents as well as visitors, we look to share those stories and promote those businesses that, as we've seen through the toughest of times, are need us to support them, not just through the holiday season, but 365 days throughout the year. So we're proud to be a large part in emphasizing the need to support those small businesses, as we see it puts food on the table and employs many of our friends and families around the region. We look forward to working alongside the Peoria County and all those listed here that support this region throughout the holiday season and 365 days a year. So with that, I want to thank you again for your service and dedication to our Peoria County, and we're here to support you throughout this holiday season, and really look forward to seeing you in the shops and stores and restaurants right here in the Peoria area. So with that, thank you very much.
Next, we'd be at citizens' remarks.
Okay, we have 4 citizens' remarks. They're all on the same subject, limited to 5 minutes apiece. So the first one I have here is a Joan Kisser. Yes, go ahead. You can, well, come up here. We'll give you a mic. Can you speak?
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thank you, Joan.
Can I lay this here?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you. My name is Joan Kisser. I live with my husband Mark at 14001 North River Beach Drive, located next to All American Airbnb's property. I hope you have all received a copy of the petition calling on Peoria County Board to reject and vote no on granting the special use permit that 42 tax-paying citizens who live on River Beach Drive have signed. Peoria County zoning sent a letter of violation to All American B&B on 6/21 of 21. Since that time, All American has continued to fully rent and operate the home as an Airbnb in violation of zoning. It seems the perception of a house being rented as an Airbnb is similar in use and almost the same as a single-family residence. No one buys a home in a residential neighborhood with the expectation that they will have absolutely no knowledge of who is living next to them. It is generally expected there will be the stability of homeowners that care and are invested to this community. There is a layer of comfort and safety when you know who your neighbors are. That comfort and safety evaporates when there are strangers of unknown character constantly rotating in and out of the property on a daily basis. Homeowners generally try to be good neighbors. Short-term renters have no vested interest. They are there on a holiday to have a good time, and then they are out of there. It states in All Americans' request that the home is usually rented to 4 guests that consist of a family unit. That rarely is the case. On average, a young family of 4, mom, dad, and 2 kids, would not be able to afford a 4-night stay at the price of $1,600. The home is usually occupied by all adults, related to each other, friends of one another, and at times transient workers. The price of the rental alone is part of the reason that the house has turned into a place for large group gatherings rather than a single family use. The more people, the less cost for everyone. The house is a 3-bedroom home and is advertised to accommodate 8 people. There have been as many as 10 adults that have slept at the house. Having that many people staying at house along with their vehicles on a daily basis is not normal for this area. The activities at this house have prompted people to stop and ask, what is going on at that house next to you? That is an indication that there are activities going on that are not normal, and that people have noticed that something is not as it should be for the neighborhood. The house on many occasions has turned into a residential party house. You have people renting, and then their friends or relatives arrive, which make for large groups of people, of adults gathering at the house. These parties can get quite loud at times. Remember, they are on a holiday. This is not at all like an occasional birthday, anniversary, graduation, or just plain old backyard barbecue that a normal would have occasionally. This is an ongoing occurrence. It is not just the large groups of people that can be very loud. Even small groups like to have parties. It is especially nice when they have the boombox out playing loud music with obscene lyrics. There has been noise going on well past 11 p.m. at times, so loud that we can hear it sitting in our own house with the windows and doors closed and the TV turned on. We and the other adjacent neighbor should not have to go over in the dark to ask strangers to turn the volume down. That is not a comfortable situation to be put in. We have been advised since to call the police when this occurs, especially when you have people renting saying F you and giving you the finger when they are asked to turn the tone down a bit. There have also been renters that immediately upon arrival have tried to muscle open the garage doors with what appeared to be the intent to break in. The rental of the house does not include access to the garage. When you have strangers in the home next to you behaving like that, it makes one think, what will happen if I leave my home for a couple hours or days? Are there going to be people trying to break in? That is not a comfortable feeling. The owners of All American Airbnb don't know the character of who is renting the house. The owners don't even know exactly how many people are staying at the house. They don't drive over to check. All they know is what they have been told through Airbnb. The owners have no interest in this neighborhood other than to make money off the rental of the house. The owners do not even live in Peoria County. Remember, there are 42 people who will live along River Beach Drive that have signed a petition calling on you, the board members, to vote no on this special use permit. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Yes, Mr. Dillon.
I'd just like to remind the board and anybody that is coming to speak, I verified Ms. Kinsner did say this at the ZBA. So this board is only allowed to hear testimony that was presented at the ZBA as fact finder's case. Her testimony today was presented at the ZBA, so that can, so Kathy will be checking, because we're not, if there's new facts that would be introduced by either side tonight, that is not in accordance with the ZBA rules. So I just wanted to make sure anybody speaking on that, if you spoke at the committee hearing, you're allowed to speak on it. If you did not, we're not allowed to take into anything if there's new information being considered. So Just wanted to make sure everybody understood the rules. That's not on Land Use Committee, but those are the rules. But her testimony was given at Land Use, so that can be taken into consideration from the board.
Thank you, Joan. Roberta Fromm. I assume your testimony was at the meeting? Thank you.
My name is Roberta Fromm, and the woman you just heard speak is one of the adjacent neighbors to the house. I'm on the other side to the south. So there is 100 feet between myself and that house, but that doesn't stop noise from loud parties and things. At the zoning board meeting, I did bring forth some testimony as far as the loud parties, maybe barbecues, but 11 o'clock at night is not an appropriate time to be having a barbecue. The vulgar and loud music that's being played, it's certainly not something that I want my son to hear. And that 100 feet with my doors and windows closed, I'm still hearing their music. I did have to go over one evening to ask them if they would turn it down, and they did. We aren't a neighborhood where we'd like to call the police and have a disturbance in the middle of the night. It's, we try to be neighborly, but this certainly isn't fitting into how we would want our neighborhood to be. It's been a nuisance and a disturbance, and I'd like you to vote no as far as our special use permit.
Thank you, Roberta. Richard Laclitus.
Hi, my name is Richard Lacaitis. I'm the attorney for Mark Kruger and Joan Kisser, who live next door to the proposed Airbnb use. I sent a letter out on November the 4th, 2021, directed it to the board administrator, and I directed that it be circulated to the board members, and I believe that did occur. Rather than read the letter all over again, I'd rather just comment on the fact that there's 42 neighbors that object to this use. And those are a lot of voters, a lot of citizens, and a lot of taxpayers. And it was so they also we signed an objection form, and we stated a number of reasons that we felt this was not in the best interest. And that was introduced as well at the zoning and planning. But disruptive conduct of guests, late night noise, increased traffic in the area, security issues, excuse me, no knowledge of identity of guests, loss of privacy, loss of peace of mind. These are many motels. This is not conducive or consistent with the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. John McCarthy.
Sure. Good evening. My name is John McCarthy. I'm an attorney from Canton, Illinois. I represent All American Airbnb. It's a limited liability company in Illinois. There are 3 members. 2 of the members are present here tonight, Tyson Smith, Rocky Darnell. They do own the property in question. We don't have any new evidence to add to what we presented at the Land Use Committee meeting. We're simply asking that you follow the recommendation of the committee, approve the special use permit with the restrictions which we agreed to in the resolution. We'd be happy to answer any questions any of you may have, but we have no new evidence to provide.
Thank you. As typical with public input, we do not get into interaction with the public on the input, and the board does not either. But this will be the first item in our regular non-consent agenda.
Next will be a consent agenda.
Can I have a motion, please? Linda? Brittany? Okay. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Anything pulled? Not seeing anything? Yes, Mr. Alcester.
I was just going to ask the legal representative if Airbnb has any.
Well, it's not the time for that now. We could do that later when we get into the discussion.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was talking to Jimmy and I got
No,
sidetracked.
we're on
The consent.
the consent agenda. Yeah. Do you have anything that you want pulled on the consent? Okay, then please vote.
Mr. Ricker? Mr. Ricker, are you still on the line? Okay. I'm gonna 15 ayes, 1 nay. Zoning, ordinance, and resolutions. Item number 1.
Could I have a motion, please?
Um,
Mr. Dillon. A second? Betty, thank you. Discussion, Mr. Dillon.
Okay, I need to read the motion.
So this is a little bit of a,
Oh,
Dip.
wait a minute.
I need to read
She
the
needs
motion.
to read the
Oh,
question.
sorry.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Let me get back here where I was. Sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. Jimmy motioned and who made your second?
Betty.
Item number 1. Case number ZBA 2021-000033. Petition of All American Airbnb LLC, a special use request from Section 20-5.5.2.2.c of the Unified Development Ordinance to provide overnight accommodations in the R2 Medium Density Residential Zoning District. The petitioner proposes to offer an entire single-family dwelling for rent on a short-term basis through the Airbnb website. The parcel is located in Medina Township. The Zoning Board of Appeals recommends denial. The Land Use Committee recommends approval with restrictions. We have our motion and second.
Yes. Mr. Dillon.
so I'll give a brief explanation of how all this happened and how the committee got to their conclusion. Kathy's also here to answer any questions if there is any open questions. And typically, in land use, we would allow not debate, but if there was a clarification like Brian's question, and if it was submitted into record, we would allow that in our committee's process. So this being not a typical case where you see a recommendation for approval by the staff and a ZBA denial and then the committee recommend it. So staff reviewed the case and it met the criteria. It's basically being treated like a bed and breakfast would be in a zoning case for the residential areas. So they felt it fell in compliance. They did add some restrictions to the case. So then it went to ZBA. So first step is it passed through all legality of whether or not it would fit into a neighborhood or had the legal right to. So then it went to the ZBA. The hearing was over 4 hours of deliberation, back and forth. Petitioners gave testimony, the objectors gave testimony, and it was given into the record that there was neighborhood objections. So after 4 hours of deliberation, there was 2 members on the committee that discussed what they felt was a compromise by building a fence next to Mrs. Kinsner's property so that there wouldn't be any direct line of sight. So, and it's from basically, so this was a restriction that we added, and it would be restriction 5. The petitioner shall install a solid fence with a height of 6 feet along the eastern side of the property line from the front of the building to the subject dwelling in the rear property line. So that was one of the things that was discussed. A board member of that committee called the question as is and didn't want to add the restriction in. So that was not voted on. So at the time, the ZBA, I believe it was a 3-1 vote for denial. But I believe 2 of those members, if a fence would have been included, would have possibly have done a recommendation. So so at the committee, it was discussed about the fence, or we made 2 changes to this. There was no such mention of overnight guests in there. So we clarified that and said no more than 8 overnight guests. Now, mind you, that's very hard for this board to police or anything else. That is up to the homeowner and Airbnb. That's based off client reviews and everything else. But that is a stipulation, which would then fall if that did not fall, if that practice did not happen. There is special. So I'll read the 6 special restrictions that we've had. So the first special restriction is this special use is only for All-American Airbnb. So they cannot sell this property and transfer that to any new homeowner or anybody that would purchase that. Second restriction is basically no more than 4 automobiles on total on the parked accessory in the single family dwelling. There's more, but that's the basis of it. Number 3, we added no more than we added the term overnight guests will be present at the subject parcel at any one time. 4, overnight accommodations may not be offered at the subject property until the certificate of occupancy was issued. There was I believe this is testimony, correct me if I'm wrong, Kathy, but there was a hearing and it was stayed until this matter was addressed by the board. It's very similar. So this is the first case we've ever had at this board level. Very similar if you've been following with what the city's doing. It's new waters for them also, so this is new waters for us. Number 5 was that we added the petitioner must install a fence next to the property. And lastly, if none of these requirements are met, the certificate is basically conditional. So if the petitioner doesn't follow these rules, the zoning administrator may pull the special use at any time. So those were all the 6 restrictions that were added. So being that was a compromise that was discussed at the committee level, the board unanimously approved it there using the same finding of fact. Because mind you, if you overturn something legally in the zoning case, you have to have your findings of facts. The findings of facts applied for the positive and the negative in this case. So the board unanimously approved that going forward. So we see this many times at the board level, is what we judge whether it's not legal for them to do it or not legal. And the board, I know many of us have gotten the calls in between. We don't get in between neighbors' relationships. That's up to the neighbors to work out. So from a legal aspect, our committee passed this forward with approval with all these restrictions and thought it was a good compromise to go forward. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I know Kathy can answer any questions if anybody would want. I don't know, Brian, if question would be, was that submitted, Kathy? Is there restrictions for Airbnb? Was that part of the record?
What was your question, Brian?
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I do not remember your name. I wasn't listening that close as far as the legal representative of Airbnb. But is there a maximum capacity of as far as the number of people on the lot at any given point in time? And the reason why I ask is if, I'm from Princeville, and if I go down there and rent it for the weekend, and like on Saturday night I say, I want all the children and the family members of my grandson's baseball team to come down for dinner, and all of a sudden you got 100 people out there. Does Airbnb have a maximum capacity on the lot at one point in time, or is that not a concern to anyone?
The restriction placed on the case is only in regard to overnight. Yes, so the restriction.
But it would be restricted by the number of vehicles setting at 4.
That's only in the lot, though. They would park all along the street. Is that right or not?
We have no control over how many people park on the street.
Yeah, the 4 vehicles would only be in the driveway.
Okay.
You could park half a mile away, you know, all the way up and down the street, like everybody does when they go out to Bobby Spears fireworks. You know, they're parked 2 miles each way. So my question is for Airbnb, do they have a restriction on maximum capacity of people on the lot at any point in time?
I don't know, can that be asked or not from the representative?
That's why I'm asking Kathy. I don't know if that was entered as testimony.
They did give testimony on that, yes. So that there was a conversation regarding that prior to that, so I did that you could answer that for
Mr. McCarthy, do you want to answer on that then? She's,
You need to turn on the microphone, Kathy. Actually,
I think your mic.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McCarthy, I did state that you and your clients had that there was a discussion upon the number of guests that your clients would allow on the property, and that you could repeat any discussion. There was also, right, and there was also discussion at the zoning board hearing that Airbnbs, when you search for a place to stay, you can search by a property that will allow events, and they can trigger whether their property will come up during that search, and it won't, because they do not allow events. So it won't come up for a search for events, and they also testified that they asked the reason for the use of the property. They stated at one point that someone asked for a 21st birthday party. They denied that person for renting the property because they did not want events at the property.
Yes, Kate.
How long have they been renting this as Airbnb? March. Another question is, I mean, do we monitor what properties are in the county that are being rented as Airbnb?
We have never had a request or a complaint on an Airbnb prior to this request. So as you know, the county's code enforcement is complaint driven. We were never made aware of any others to this point. We were made aware of this one a couple months after they started apparently renting it out as an Airbnb. It moved through the complaint process, through the hearing officer, and then they filed for this use.
How many complaints were there?
We had one neighbor make the complaint. After the filing of this case, she also made a complaint on 3 other cases that will be coming forward to you. But until the objections petition for this specific case after it was filed, there were no other complaints on it.
Okay. So I'm assuming it was discovered that this was an Airbnb because of the complaints, and that's why we're going through this process.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so there was one complaint prior to the filing of the case.
Okay. And you had mentioned 3 other?
Those will be coming forward in a couple months for your...
and where are those located by?
In the same general area.
Okay, so,
But that is not testimony for this case. That's correct.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions from board members? Yes, Rob.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll need to abstain from this vote since I'm related to one of the parties involved.
All right, thank you, Rob. I will only make certain comments that we've stayed, our family has stayed in Airbnbs several times and bed and breakfasts. And we read the reviews, and if the reviews aren't good, we don't stay there. So I think that means that they take good care of their property, Airbnbs do, and so you don't know what kind of neighbor you're going to get move into you if they move in as a permanent one. Some people are just naturally clutter and don't take care of things, but if they're going to rent this thing on a regular basis, they're going to have to maintain it so that people will want to come back or write good reviews. So I personally am going to support this. Thank you. Cool. Any other comments? All right, then I guess we'll vote. Please vote.
Mr. Ricker?
Aye.
I'm not going to be able to go back. I apologize. I didn't know he was back on the line. I will make note of his aye. Says it's 13 ayes. 3 nays, and 1 abstention. And I will make a note of that. I can't go back and change it on here, but I will make note of that.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in.
Item number 2, a resolution from the Chairman of Public Safety and Justice Committee and the County Administrator recommending approval of the FY 2021 appropriation for expenditures in the amount of $200,000 in Circuit Clerk Special Revenue Funds.
Paul, second. Eden, thank you. Any discussion? Paul, you want to comment on it?
I'll let Scott handle this.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So earlier this year, the General Assembly passed legislation the governor signed into law that realigns and redistributes how the Circuit Clerk's office collects their revenues and their special revenue funds. The clerk has 4 different special revenue funds. What this action item does for you is moves money between those 4 special revenue funds so that it is now aligned with the legislation that has been enacted by the state.
Okay. Any questions before we have the vote? Seeing none, please vote.
Mr. Ricker?
Aye.
16 ayes, 1 nay. Item number 3, a resolution from your Public Safety and Justice Committee recommending approval of the intergovernmental agreement between Peoria County and the Stark County establishing and authorizing the operation of a joint emergency telephone system board.
Paul and Linda, thank you. Discussion? We are fortunate to have Dave Tuttle in the audience here, who was instrumental in the 911 in Peoria County and did a smooth operation in the conversion of that, which took many different episodes to go through to do it. And he and a member of the Sheriff's Department, retired, are going to be involved with the Stark County to make this transition. So they got some excellent people to guide them on this. So, yes, Mr. Dillon.
Mr. Fennell, since I'm not on that committee, could somebody just give me a little, I've read the packet, but just
Sure.
how this came about and.
Yeah, happy to do that, or Mr. Tuttle probably could do it better than I can.
Okay. For about the last 6 years, the state of Illinois, about 6 or 7 years ago, the state of Illinois passed a law that basically said that 911 needed to have coverage in the entire state. Stark County tried to pass a referendum 3 times back in the 80s and 90s and wasn't able to do so. So they approached the counties around them numerous times. They approached us about 2 different times over 6 years. We did not believe that we were in a situation where we would be able to dispatch their cars for service and such, because at that time they wanted one of our 2 dispatch centers to basically dispatch police, fire, and EMS for Stark County. So we told them that we just were not able to do that, as did Marshall, Bureau, Henry, Knox, all said the same thing numerous times. So in March of this year, the state changed how they approached us, and they indicated that would we be willing to allow Stark County to attach themselves to Peoria County, have a joint emergency telephone system board, and would we assist them in creating a 911 system in Stark County? It's anticipated that they would bring in about $100,000 a year, which is not very much money, but the state's also indicated that they'll pay for the initial equipment and setup, and there will be no cost to Peoria County. There may be some money that we have to pay on the front end in order to get them going, but the agreement allows for reimbursement through, for a period of time, so that the Stark County money would basically pay for the operation and maintenance of their 911 system. So what we're doing here is we're helping our neighbors. We're helping them to have the same 911 system that we have in Peoria County, and basically they would be the 3rd dispatch center in the Peoria Stark County 911 system.
Thank you, Dave. Brian?
As I mentioned in committee, Peoria County always needs to look at it for itself first, and then other counties, afterwards. But I'm just very pleased with this because I have a lot of relatives and friends in Stark County. But if you know anything about Stark County, it has a lot of very fine small towns and a lot of farmland, but no large businesses or large cities, and where to draw a tax base from. And so I think I asked Mr. Sorrell in the committee meeting what their total budget is, and I don't think it's much over $1 million or $2 million for the whole year for everything in the county, and so they don't have a lot to draw from. So I'm very pleased that we can help them, even though we're not putting out any money for it. Help them in the logistics part of it, so that they can be safe and be more protected.
Mr. Dillon.
Dave, I'm happy to help a neighbor, but just want some reassurance that this is not going to that we will not be subsidizing, and that if we ever do subsidize in the future, that we have an out clause.
Yes, there is an out clause, and if the out clause would be invoked, then they would reimburse us over a period of time for all of the monies that we may have had to advance them in order to get their system up and operational. We believe that the state grant funding for the consolidation grant would probably start coming in sometime in May of next year. So there would be reimbursement that would follow shortly thereafter. But yes, with Jenny's assistance and Caroline from Stark County, we worked up an agreement that does allow for an out clause and reimbursement to Peoria County.
Good question. Good question. Anyone else? Yes, Jennifer.
So is there any potential impact to the residents of Peoria County that we may be missing?
I'm not aware of any impacts to Peoria County at this point in time. Basically what we'll be doing is we'll be expanding our 911 system into Stark County. We use some of our infrastructure that they will pay for or will be covered by the grant, but Peoria County will see no degradation of service. It'll actually allow those folks that do travel into Stark County to have the same level of service that Peoria County has today.
Rob.
Thank you. Jimmy, I did ask in committee too that if failure to pay would allow us to invoke that out clause, and I was told at the time that it would.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Mr. Tuttle wears a couple different hats. He's been the Peoria, City of Peoria 911 person, a county 911 person. He's the Hannah City Fire Chief, and I'm glad to say he's been a good friend for me. So thank you very much for all you do.
Mr. Chairman, we'll know who to call if we get in trouble, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Just to clarify, this is not a quick process. So thankfully, the state already invoked Western Illinois University, which we also did to complete our mapping for Peoria County, and able to locate folks. And the location technology today is second to none in 911 system, finally. That system will also go forward into Stark County. So I would anticipate at least 1 to 2 years before this would be operational.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, any other questions? Mr. Tuttle? Or
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to comment.
Yes,
Now,
go ahead.
Stark was the last county for 911. Wasn't that
That is correct. Stark County is the last county in the state of Illinois out of all 102 counties to not have 911 service. Henderson was the one before them, and they've attached themselves to Hancock.
Okay, thank you. Okay, please vote.
Mr. Ricker?
Aye.
Mr. Dillon? 16 ayes, 1 nay. Item number 4, a recommendation from the Chairman of County Operations Committee and the County Administrator to authorize amendments to Section 5 of the Peoria County Ordinance to update language regarding PCAPs, redemption fees, and animal adoption fees.
Could I, Rob, motion, second? Somebody I haven't asked yet. Anybody? Okay, Eden, thank you. Spread it around. Yeah, share the love. Okay, discussion. Rob?
Thank you. This is just some fairly simple rewording of an ordinance that allows Becky some flexibility in the rates that she charges for both redemption fees and animal adoption fees. It might allow her to subsidize some of those fees for people who can't really afford to get their pets back out.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions from board members? Yes, Kate.
I just wanted to make a comment. So some of the language previously, one, they wanted to increase rates, but two, this also gives her flexibility because it says up to, so that she can gauge, if she's got more animals than she wants to take care of at the moment and needs to get them, to homes, it allows her some flexibility to decrease the rates as she feels is necessary. So I think that that's important. I would rather see animals adopted out to homes and see them, in our care, just sitting there forever. So
right. Good
I think
point.
this is a benefit to us and to the families who are going to adopt as well. So
Absolutely. Good point. Thank you. Any other comments? Please vote.
Mr. Ricker?
Aye.
16 ayes, 1 nay. Item number 5, suspension of rules.
I have a motion, please. Sharon, Linda? Discussion? You want to give you haven't spoke tonight?
You're voting with this motion to suspend your rules as you do each month with regard to the disaster proclamation. Again, we do that because things normally come up through committee, but given the timing of when the state releases its disaster proclamation, it doesn't come through committee. So that one you're used to. And then, Scott, do you want to discuss the second appointment, or would you like me to handle that one?
I can start, and then if I obviously misstate anything, you can correct me if I leave anything out. Please supplement. So you'll see item 6 on the agenda is appointments. and I'm sure Mr. Fennell and Mr. Dillon will speak to it once we get to that item. But the two of them discussed outstanding appointments, since it's been several months since we've been able to make appointments. Your rules of order state that the chairman shall make appointments, and it is the board's job to advise and consent on those appointments, and only the chairman can make appointments. So by suspending the rules, you're suspending that section of the county board's rules of order, so that the list of appointments before you tonight can be brought forward, and then you can deliberate and vote on as you determine appropriate. And I will just leave it at that.
Okay, so we have a motion to suspend the rules, so let's vote on that first. Any other questions about that? Okay. Yes, Kate.
So right now, we're just voting to suspend the rules so we can talk about these two things. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Mr. Ricker?
Aye.
16 ayes, 1 nay. Next would be appointments.
Mr. Dillon and Mr. Elsesser? Mr. Dillon.
Thank you, Chairman Fennell. So the origin of this is a chair of the Rules Committee, and Mr. Fennell had called and discussed because Dr. Blair has 2 members that need to get to work on her committee. Some of these are standard appointments, so we didn't have any appointments go through last month. So we got a couple cemeteries, a Board of Appeals, and then a PUATS appointment. So he asked if it would be agreeable. The rules clearly state that it is only the chairman's authority to make appointments. That if we could go and allow some appointments so that we can continue doing business to proceed. So in conversations with our 2 lawyers that used to be on the board that I was dealing with in regards to maps, they both suggested, well, you don't need to change any of the rules, which I didn't even think of, and that we just need to suspend the rules, which would still require a 2/3 majority to approve the appointment. So these aren't a standard vote. So I know I talked to some other rules members, committees about it, and that being that some of these appointments need to go through, it was a perfectly agreeable compromise to allow to suspend the rules for these case scenarios. I know the main concerns with why those were in place, and me and Mr. Fennell discussed that, was unfortunately this board has had to reappoint countywide electeds, and we've had to appoint our own members that sit around this horseshoe, and that's really why that rule was instated in the first place. But Mr. Fennell came up with a great idea to get this through. So this is why we're there, and I'm 100%, 10% in support of allowing this way. And it is completely legal way of doing it, so we're not skirting anything. So thanks for bringing this to our attention, Mr. Fennell.
Is there any, yes, Kate?
I just wanted to clarify. So we are voting to suspend the rules that we have.
Already did.
So regarding the appointments, though, we're not voting for any appointments. We're voting to allow.
That are in the packet.
Tonight. So there's 2 advisory members to Eden's New Economic Development or Entrepreneurship Committee.
Oh, sorry, they're usually sitting in front of us, so I didn't.
Yeah, property and maintenance, 2 cemeteries, and then a PUATS. And some of these committee appointments have been sitting for 2 months without being able to get to work as an official capacity. So this suspending the rules, taking that out, allows this to be processed.
And one point of clarification, it takes a 2/3 majority to suspend your rules, but now that you've suspended, it's your appointment, your consent and approval of the list of appointments is a majority vote, just as if Chairman Rand had set these forward.
Yes, Jennifer.
I'm assuming there's a typo on the term expiration for building and property and PUATS. One of them is already expired.
Oh.
Yes, that's a Scribner's error.
What?
Thank you for catching that. Appreciate it. You're like my granddaughter, detail. She sees everything. Okay. Any other comments? Seeing none, please vote.
Mr. Ricker,
Aye.
Ms. Bryant. 16 ayes, 1 nay. Item number 7, a proclamation extending the declaration of emergency due to COVID-19 in Peoria County, Illinois.
Have a motion, please. Rob. I don't look over there enough, Phil. Phil, I'm sorry about that. And I didn't get Mr. Watkins yet tonight, too. Maybe we'll have you adjourn the meeting or something, huh? Okay. Is there any discussion? We've done this many times. Seeing none, please vote.
Mr. Ricker,
Aye.
Ms. Duncan. 13 ayes, 4 nays.
Miscellaneous. Anyone from the, yes, Ms. Blair.
I'd like to just wish a happy Veterans Day to everyone, but most importantly, my father, a former Green Beret and Vietnam vet. He now lives in Lubbock, Texas. He's probably not listening, but I wanted to wish him a very good Veterans Day today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anyone else? Phil, yes.
Fortunately, I was lucky to attend today, even though the weather wasn't real great. But I want to thank Gary Hall from post number 2, who was the major force behind their parade and some of the detail in their ceremonies and so forth. I also listened to one of my former students who graduated from Peoria High School, Brigadier General William Robbie Robertson, and he was the guest speaker, and he announced, of course, his retirement. His last day in service was today, 41 and a half years. And the thing that I was most proud of was the fact that we are responsible for these 2 war memorials that we have established over these last 15 years or so. And I noticed how many people walked from one to the other and viewed the people and the conflicts that we, the people that we had honored, as well as the conflicts that we have been involved in and so forth. This is the cornerstone of our county. Absolutely. People rally around this courthouse. The veterans are a good example of that. And we should be proud of what we have done for them.
Thank you, Phil. Jimmy, would you comment, so that's on the record, about the committee meeting we had prior on redistricting and where it's going from here?
So we had, before the meeting, another redistricting public hearing. For some of you that might not have noticed, we did make a change in the northern and the westernmost districts. So that's the map that's going to go forward. We have received 4 public comments. Those were addressed at the public meeting. So it'll be open for public comment for about 2 more weeks now. And so on Tuesday, November 30th at 3:30, we will have another redistricting committee. And then at 4 o'clock today, we signed today some members to have a full board meeting at 4 o'clock that would allow to vote on these maps. So in the last 2 weeks, we've addressed some of the concerns that we've got. We changed the map after listening to some board member input. So unless nothing drastic, we're going to leave it out there for more public input. But at 3:30, we will be approving a resolution to bring forward to that full board meeting at 4 o'clock. And that is basically after budget exec meetings on our standard time. And then I just wanted to congratulate big honor for the county, but we had 2 40 under 40s, which were Gretchen Pearsall and Chris Watkins. So congratulations to both of them, and very well deserved.
I might go on with Jimmy's comment also with the redistricting. We had 2 former board members, being Alan Mayer and Steve Morris, that helped do the mapping and gave all their free time to do this, and we really appreciate their efforts that they did and adjusting the maps. And go ahead, Mr. Dillon.
And that was shared there, and I'd be remiss. So Josh from GIS has done a tremendous job on this, and that on Wednesday, I believe they said Wednesday of next week, is National GIS Day. So there will be a tutorial of GIS and redistricting that will be put on our website so that people can see it. So, and the new maps have already been updated online, so I believe it's still referred to as version 2. So maybe we would take version 1. Would it be appropriate to take version 1 down now? So for not to create a confusion?
We can figure out a way to archive it, or at least make sure that those that go to the website know and understand that version 2 is the map that you are deliberating.
I think that would be appropriate now that I think about that. We didn't discuss to make sure that everybody looking at it knows version 2 would be the actual map going forward. So,
Mr. Elsesser?
Well, first I want to say and wish everyone a blessed and a safe Thanksgiving with your families and friends. And then regarding Mr. Salzer's comments, I'll just take this off. The memorials are just an absolute gem for Peoria County. God bless Mr. Sonamaker and all of you and the county board for all the work you've done to make it possible. My wife and I are proud that we own a block out there in memory of my dad and my father-in-law, who have both gone on to be with the Lord. And God bless all the veterans, and especially those who gave their life and never got to come back to America, because those are the ones that really suffered loss. But my dad served 4 years in the Pacific Front, and he was on the island of Tinia in the Mariana Islands, where the Enola Gay took off and returned. And we have a picture at home of him standing next to that plane. My father-in-law was on the European front for 4 years, and he actually worked on General Eisenhower's Jeep. So just a little bit of trivia there tonight. So God bless all the veterans. Our country wouldn't be here without them.
Yes, Jennifer.
I'll also mention thank you to the veterans and their families, but I also wanted to give a little shout out to the health department staff. I took my daughter to get her, my youngest daughter, to get her vaccination today. And if anybody has any concerns or their child absolutely hates shots, this is the place to go. The staff it was like you were walking into an amusement park. They were bubbly and excited and kept things moving. So kudos to Monica and all the health department staff for keeping that to be a positive environment for the kids.
Thank you. Very good. Yes, Ms. Blair.
Sorry to add an announcement. It is National Animal Shelter Appreciation Week, and I wanted to thank PCAPS for all the amazing work they do in this area.
Yeah, we're fortunate, very fortunate. Yes. Oh, no other board members at this time? Then our county clerk has got something for us.
I just would like to, all of you, I left a new directory, officials and services directory at your station. If you would like some additional copies, I have them in my office. They will go out to all the communities. I've delivered some personally, and then some we will be mailing. But I want to thank Mike and Danielle in my department that really helped pull this together. It's a nice piece, and just wanted you to know that they're available if you want some more.
Okay. I have a personal thing that's happening right now in Chillicothe. I've talked to you before about the downtown area riverfront where they put the eagles and they put the sighting where you can use the telescopes and look at the 2 eagle nests and the island across from it. Well, there's been a petition filed with the Corps of Engineers to put a 48 barge mooring station on that next to that island right across from the city park. And so we're in the, right now protesting that, and they extended it for 15 more days, and they're going to probably have a public hearing on it, but anyone that's likes to see the riverfront as much as I do is right out my back window. I look at it all the time. And we just don't need that in that area. And a friend of mine that's lives on the river also, he did a survey, and there were 79 mooring places along the Illinois River from Chicago to St. Louis, and not one of them was in a residential or a community like Chillicothe riverfront. They were all in more of a isolated blockage by trees and what have you, or in an industrial complex. So hopefully we can get something changed there. Mr. Sorrell wrote a letter for us. The Tri-County Regional Planning wrote a letter for us, and I think there was maybe the Economic Development wrote a letter for us, and also our local congressman, and I heard a person today that was going to go hold Mr. Dirk, not Dirksen, gosh, Democratic, Durbin, there we go, thank you. Wow. Dirksen, that's a long time back. Yes, Brian.
Yeah, one of my constituents contacted me regarding that issue, and he brought me up to snuff on the history of the person that's applying for this petition and what it would look like out there with those 40 barges. And so if I can do anything to help, please let me know, because it would not be a positive thing.
To expand on what Brian said, Mr. Ham, or the Ham organization down the marina down the road, they've got 12 tugs within that harbor. 2 of them are pushed up on shore, and he's cut barges up, scrapped them out down there. And when barges are getting ready to scrap out, they are kind of unsightly. We certainly don't want those stored along that riverfront. So thank you for mentioning that, Brian. Anything else come before the meeting? Junior, would you adjourn us, please? All right, thank you. So adjourned.